Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's stream. Today I will overview the second day of the online chess Olympiad Division B, where Romania is competing during these days. I should say that today we had a successful day, winning all of our free matches. So we were able to grab the lead in our group. I am a little bit tired, to be honest, but it was interesting for me to check my teammates' games. And I think that is gonna be interesting for everyone to see. All right, let's start with the second match we played today, as the first one actually it was the first one, sorry. So the first match we played today was against the team of Slovakia, who was actually leading the standings after the first day. Hello Torlek, welcome to the stream. It was a really tense match. Let's start with our first board, Grandmaster Lupulescu, who played against Druska Jurash. He was with the white pieces, so it was this I would call semi-Tarrasch. Knight c3, b takes c3, c5, rook b1. Well, actually it's not really a semi-Tarrasch because bishop b4, bishop d2 did not happen. But it is very similar to its structure. C takes, knight c6, knight f3, and okay, but by change of move order, it went to this theoretical position, where after short castle, bishop b5, knight e7. This position is considered to be close to equality, though black should be really precise. Short castle, b6, knight e5, bishop b7, queen e3. Now white's play is simple. To bring the rooks towards the center, and in the same time to maybe try either go for d5 if the black knight goes away from e7, or maybe to start somehow an attack over black's king by bringing over the rook via the third rank, like something like rook b3, then rook g3 after the queen goes away. Hello, no Fortnite. We are playing, Romania in the second division, in the pool B, and we are fighting for qualifying into the highest division, which is the first one. And so far we are doing actually pretty well. We are leading our group, so only 3 games, 3 matches left, and I think we have quite good chances to qualify, as the top 3 places from each group go into the next division. Alright, after queen e3, the Slovakian player played knight g6, which already is a blunder. He should have played something like rook c8 instead, and we would see the difference. The problem after knight g6 is that white has knight d7. The only move is rook e8, and now after knight c5, b takes, bishop takes e8. The bishop is hanging on b7, so in the end white will be left with an exchange up. Compared to this variation, if black would have played rook c8, let's say, after knight d7, rook 8, knight c5, black would have the important bishop c6 move, which he did not have in the previous variation. So rook c8 was the best way to continue the game. After knight g6, everything developed as described before, bishop e8. Now black played rook b8, but after bishop a4, c takes, queen b3, queen g5, bishop c6, bishop c6, queen b8. Well, white has actually 2 exchanges up, and it was just a matter of time converting the advantage. So quite a smooth victory on the first board for Romania in the match against Slovakia, I would say. Let's move on to the second board, where Grandmaster Lubomir Vtachnik had the white pieces against our international master David Gavrilescu. Grandmaster Vtachnik is well known as a really good coach, and he's also having quite a great tournament so far, bringing a lot of points to his team. So here the experience in this game was testing the young. So knight f3, d5, e3, c5. Okay, these are some tricky move orders. b3, knight f6, bishop b2, knight c6, bishop b5. I remember checking this myself. White's idea is quite simple: to capture on c6, then to play d3, knight d2, knight e5, castle f4, g4, and then start an attack over black's king if black is to castle short. Bishop d7 followed, short castle, e6, d3 as promised, bishop e7, knight e2, short castle, bishop takes c6, take, and knight e5. Well, these positions, I must say that are completely fine for black, though in rapid time controls it is a lot easier to play them with white pieces, because the play is very obvious and the plan is quite easy to follow. Only Romanian to play 5 games. Yeah, indeed. I did play the most games in the team, but I don't complain, as I'm happy to have had the time to play. So, all right. Just a second, so that I will let know everyone that we are live on Twitter as well. It seems that I forgot doing so earlier. My bad. Just a little second. By the way, guys, did you follow the games live? Did you have any favorite game, or any game which you particularly liked? Please let me know in the chat. Just a slight second before. All right, should be ready now. Okay, let me see what were you saying? All right, not much going on in the chat, so let's continue with the game. Knight e5, queen c7, f4, knight d7, queen g4. Well, the threat is obvious. White wants to capture a piece on c6 or on d7, and then the threat have a mate on g7 is really dangerous. Knight f6 back, queen e2, knight d7. Of course, black is happy with a repetition here. Knight d2 f3, f6. It makes sense to exchange this knight. Knight takes c6, queen takes a4, preventing black from playing b5 himself, as in this position black should play on the queen side, while white will be trying something either in the center or on the king side, which actually doesn't seem really likely. Rook f to e8 followed, c4. Rook a to d8, rook d1. Black was doing really well up to this point. Queen b6 followed. Now the pawn on b3 became a weakness. Queen c2, knight b8. A really nice move by our young David Gavrilescu, who is rerouting the knight from d7, which was doing not much there, to either c6 or a6 and then to b4. a5 followed, queen c7, and now d4. Well, white has taken a lot of positional decisions. And it seems that white's pawn structure isn't so fine right now. So you're not following the tournament, no fortnight. Your country still did not start. I see. Hello, Play Smart. I'm doing fine, thank you, though I'm a little bit tired, to be honest. But I'm happy that Romania won all the matches today, so all good. Alright, so now we're looking at the game of Lubomir Vtachnik, a very experienced grandmaster and renowned coach from Slovakia, against our young and talented international master David Gavrilescu. It was the first match we played today against Slovakia, and it was one of the toughest, as Slovakia was leading the group before this round. Alright, so after d4, knight c6 followed, the pawn on a5 is hanging in some variations. C takes d5, rook takes d5. e4, rook d8. And now, well, white is in a very difficult situation. The pawn on f4 is hanging, the pawn on a5 is hanging, and I would say that strategically white is already lost here. So all he can hope for is for some dynamic play. Actually, I did not win, unfortunately, all of my games, even though I would wish so. But we'll get to it a little bit later. Here, Grandmaster Vtachnik played e5, but after knight b4, queen e2, c takes d4. Now white faces a lot of problems. He took on d4 with the knight, but the problem is that after bishop c5, this knight is pinned, and we see only weaknesses in white's position. Rook a to c1 followed, trying to fight back somehow, and here unfortunately David Gavrilescu went wrong by making a really obvious move, a really natural one, queen takes a5. But that's a mistake, and we'll see why in a while. Instead, it was better to take on e5 first, and then after f takes e5, then only to capture on a5. So after saying this, you probably have guessed that the issue of taking on a5 immediately is that e takes f6 is possible. And now there are some problems with black's king. Here the only way to continue the fight would be knight d5, which to be honest is not really a natural move. Instead, black played knight c6, but this is a complete and unfortunate blunder because of f7, and after king f7, queen h5 check, g6, queen c5, white is up a whole piece. So unfortunately that was how this game ended. White is over pushed. Yeah, indeed, white made too many risky decisions. And why I said that white is strategically lost is because, let me get to this position, let's say, or to this one. White expanded, to say so, and has a lot of weaknesses. So let's imagine that we take the queens out of the board. Then it will be really difficult to take care of that unfortunate pin. I mean the knight on d4 and the bishop on c5. Then the pawn on e5 is weak. The pawn on a5 might potentially become a target. Also, we have these really nice squares for our pieces. So, for example, the knight can jump over to d5, attacking the pawn on f4, also threatening some knight e3s. The bishop can come to b4. So basically, white is all ruins, and he has too many weak squares and weak pawns as well. That's why I said that the position was strategically lost for white. No problem, Play Smart. My pleasure. That's why I'm here. Yeah, so the score was 1-1 After we watched the first two boards, let's move on to the next one. And actually the next one is my game. I played against a woman grandmaster with white pieces, and I chose to play a really rare variation, bishop a4, knight f6, d4 in this Ruy Lopez. Actually, I prepared that I would play against a different player, but they changed the team composition just like 5 minutes before the game, so I had no idea who my opponent. Well, I heard of her, but I had no clue of what she's playing, so I just decided to go for something which maybe she would spend a lot of time trying to figure out. But she did that pretty well. E takes d4 is indeed the best move. And after short castle, bishop e7, e5, knight e4, rook e1. Somehow she figured out the best moves really quickly here. And that's, you know, the bad thing about going for a sideline, that you're hoping that your opponent will either take a long time thinking or will go wrong immediately. That's not the most correct approach, though in these rapid time controls, sometimes they are worth trying. Here she played knight c5, bishop takes c6, d takes, knight d4, knight e6. And here I remembered checking this position, and I knew that the best move would be knight f5, when after queen d1, rook d1, and then either bishop d8 or bishop f8, we get to this end game, or to call so queenless middle game, where the position is quite balanced and it's still really complicated, though black doesn't have a lot of problems. Of course, we would think that white has almost like a pawn up, but in the same time black has the pair of bishops, and it's really difficult for white to advance the pawns and so on. Anyway, it would have been a different game. But for some reason during the game I thought, why not to play bishop e3 instead? It looked very nice for me. Yeah, indeed, I'm playing with the white pieces, play smart. So yeah, I did play bishop e3, though it is not a good idea at all to let black exchange those knights, because then the advantage of the pair of bishops would be even more palpable. So she took correctly on d4, and after queen d4, bishop d4, bishop f5, c3, long castle. Black has already no reasons to be sad about the position, only reasons to be happy about it. And I realized that I might get into trouble, so I started playing a bit more solid. Knight d2, c5, bishop e3, all forced, rook d3 natural, h3. Of course, it would be great for white to play g4, so black played h5 to prevent it. Knight f3 happened, rook h2 d8, rook ac1, b6, king h2. By playing king h2, I was preparing to either go for g3 or to play maybe knight g1 and then knight e2, knight f4, trying to regroup my knight from f3. Because anyway, the only chance white has in this position is to somehow advance those pawns, though it's really difficult to succeed doing so. Bishop e6 followed, the pawn on a2 is hanging, so a3, king b7. Now, as promised, I played knight g1. Actually, during the game, I was also considering knight g5, but then I saw this knight e3, rook e3, sorry. And unfortunately, I'm losing material here, so knight g5 was not a possibility. Instead, bishop g5 maybe could have been tried, but then after take and rook d2, I start having problems on the second rank. Another move which I considered was rook c2, but then I did not like that after bishop b3 I have to go for some exchanges, though maybe it would have been better just to exchange a pair of rooks. And after rook d2, knight d2, now I'm ready to play g4 or f4. Maybe it would actually, now that I'm looking at it, maybe it would have been a better idea to do so. Instead, I went for knight g1, g5 followed. Of course, it would have been nice for me to just bring the knight to f4 without anyone doing anything about it. g5, h4. Here I sacrifice a pawn, but the idea is to spoil a bit black structure and in the same time to free again my f4 square for the knight. G takes h4, knight e2. Here I was already quite happy about my position, but then I saw that she could play rook 3 to g5, which is quite a nasty move, because now after knight f4 she can capture on e5, and if I defend the pawn on e5 with either f4 or bishop f4, then I will no longer have that square for my knight, unfortunately. Yeah, play smart. The idea of knight g1 was to bring it to f4 via e2. So that was the deep idea behind my move. Yeah, so here I was forced to play f4, f6. My opponent played really well up to this point. She started to mess it up a little bit later. E takes f6, bishop takes, knight g1 back. As the knight is not doing much on e2, I decided to bring it over to f3 again. Here again I was quite optimistic about my position, as I have the free passing, the passed pawn on the f file. So if I manage to exchange a pair of bishops, I should be doing okay. Bishop g4 followed, not allowing my knight to go to f3, but then it went to h3. Now knight g5 might be one threat, another one is knight f2, so she decided to exchange it. Bishop h3, king takes h3, rook d3, rook c2. Here I was again too optimistic, I think, about my position. Thank you for the follows. Thank you very much appreciated. Yeah, so I think that my problem in this game was that I kept being too optimistic, and actually my opponent was quite low on time. I was ahead with a few minutes, so maybe that was one reason. Another reason was maybe because she was lower rated than me, so somehow I felt that my position was better than it was. Hello, Pawn March Destroyer, nice to see you on the stream. Alright, so c4 followed, a good move, fixing my pawns on the dark squares, and they potentially might become a target later. King h2 to unpin my bishop, rook 8, rook e2, bishop g7, bishop f2, rook e2, rook e2. Here I thought that she should defend the pawn on h4. Okay, I must say that by this point we were both quite low on time. But she found this good move, bishop h6, and the problem is that I don't have a convenient way to defend the pawn on f4. For example, bishop e3 does not work because of these small tactics, and after bishop f4, black wins a piece. And if I play f5, then okay, bishop f4 is an issue, and then my king might start having some problems. So I chose to play rook e4, but then I'm giving up control over the second rank. So if rook d2, then bishop h4, and still white is doing fine. But again, my opponent found a really good move, which is h3. And now after g takes, now rook d2 only. So king g3 followed, rook takes b2. Rook takes c4, b5. Well, the position is balanced here, though if you see, my pawns are placed on dark squares, and it makes it quite easy to attack them for black, as she has a dark square bishop. That's why I played rook b4, rook c2, rook b3, bishop f4. Well, here I could have played bishop d4, defending the pawn like this, but then I did not like bishop f8, and then after rook b3, c5. Then c4 is coming. I did not like this development. problem is that after c4 the pawn on a3 will be hanging. So I decided that it was time to go for a draw after rook b3, bishop f4, king f4, rook f2, king g5, winning the pawn on the h file, c5, a4 now, king c6, a takes, king h5. Now this position is completely drawish, but unfortunately I showed some good talent here and managed to lose it unbelievably. But let's learn from my mistakes and see how I should have handled the position. c4 followed quite logically, rook a3, rook f3, king g4 all forced, rook d3, h4. Well, now the usual idea here is that after an exchange of the pawns, then white should give the rook for the passer, and then the endgame with the king and pawn versus king and rook should be a draw. Okay, let's see how that idea should have appeared on the board. b4, quite a logical move, rook a4, b takes c3, and here on very little seconds on my clock, I thought that after rook c4, king d5, rook c8, she has this nasty check, and after king g5, rook c4. And with my clock and seconds ticking down, I didn't realize that this is actually still a draw because I have rook d8 check, a really important one, and now when the king goes away, rook d1. Doesn't matter where the king goes, it can go on e4 as well. c2, rook c1. And now by the time the king comes toward the pawn, I have enough time to push my own h-pawn towards queen, so this is an easy draw because the king is too far from the pawn. So unfortunately, I did not realize that I have time to stop the c-pawn by giving this check on d8, and instead I played a really bad move, which is h5, and here after rook d4, king g5 and c2, I am just losing because there is no way to stop black's pawn from queening. It's quite a silly way to lose this endgame. I'm not really proud of it. I was pretty angry when the game ended, but what to do? You cannot win all the games. There should be always a place for improvement. And you know, they say that when you play too well, then you are relaxed, you feel all is fine. But like this, when you are losing a game and making some stupid mistake, then you feel, oh, there is still so much to work on, and maybe you find more motivation to work on your chess, and rather than be happy with your wins. Alright, so that made the score be 2-1 in favor of Slovakia, and I was pretty worried that my game might be decisive. On the fourth board, there was international master Maslikova Veronika playing with the white pieces against our Corina Peptan. And here it was a Caro-Kann, knight f6, knight g3, g6. Okay, quite an unusual variation of the Caro-Kann with g6, c3, queen d5, bishop e2, knight e4, knight e4, queen e4, castle, castle, rook e1, queen d5. Well, here white is doing perfectly fine. These structures are usually better for white because the bishop on g7 is quite blocked by the good pawn chain white has on b2, c3 and d4, and white should go for some central play. h3 would have been a good move because it's not convenient to give away the pair of bishops. Probably a retreat would follow, and then just bishop f4 preventing e5, and then even g4 might be an idea for white, or queen d2 and slowly playing in the center and improving the position. Then bishop h6 or bishop e5. Instead, white went for queen b3, which is not exactly the best move, as after queen b3, a b3, black is happy to take off some pieces from the board because, having less space, in this way with less pieces, it's easier to maneuver them. Knight d7 followed, h3, bishop f5, bishop f4. Well, I will not get too deep into it, as it was a really long game, a maneuvering one. But in the end, the position was really very balanced, but Irina just proved to be a better player, and in an equal rook endgame, she managed to win. Well, this position, everyone would think that it's a draw, but in short time controls, everything can happen, and Irina did a fine job outplaying her opponent to convert. Yeah, she did convert the advantage. I'm not sure what did I say instead, but that's what I meant indeed. All right, so let's move on to the next game. The score meant that it was level, so it was 2-2 by this point. And in this game, international master Kostaki Mihna played against Sahidi Samir, rated 2380, actually higher rated than our player in rapid chess. But the game went on very unexpected, let's say. Alright, so d4, knight f6, c4 is 6. So Kostaki Mihna had white pieces here, knight f3, d5, knight c3, d takes c4, so an accepted queen's gambit, e3, c5, bishop c4, a6, short castle, b5, bishop b3, I think it's all still theory, bishop b7, and this variation is supposed to be worse for black because of exactly this move, e4, which was found out I think like 12 years ago, or at least that was the moment when I got to know about it. I remember playing myself the queen's gambit accepted, but I stopped doing so exactly because of this nice e4 move. Thank you for the raid, Diana, and welcome everyone to the stream. Nice to see you here. So I'm overviewing today's matches which Romania played in the online chess Olympiad in the second division. So now is a game from our match versus Slovakia, when international master Mihna Kostaki played against Sahidi Samir, who I suppose is also an international master. Alright, so as I was saying, e4 had to close up this variation, but either the player with the black pieces did not know about it, or maybe he knew something which I don't know, not sure about it. Anyway, he played c takes d4, knight takes d4, and here he went on to accept this pawn sacrifice on e4 by playing knight takes e4, which is actually quite a huge mistake, because after knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, rook e1, black is actually in real trouble, as the bishop doesn't have a good square to retreat. How did I do today? Well, Romania won all the matches, so we won 3 out of 3. I myself am not as happy as I was yesterday about my performance. I scored 2 out of 3, but I felt that I could have done better. But thanks for asking. How are you doing, Diana? Alright, rook e1, so bishop b7 followed, and now some really nice tactics by Mihna. He played knight takes e6. The point is that black doesn't have time to take on d1, because after knight g7 it's double check, and when the king goes away, rook takes d1, and white is left with a lot of material up because the pawn on f7 is hanging as well. In the game, f takes e6 followed, where after queen h5 check, g6, queen e5, well, first the check on e6, bishop e7, and now queen e5. Well, white sacrificed the piece, but there is a big attack going on in the center, so white has full compensation, and I even think that black is hopeless here. Rook f8 followed, bishop h6, knight c6, rook takes c6. A really nice move again. Now black cannot capture back the rook because of bishop f8, king f8, and queen h8 mate. So rook f5 followed, queen c3 now. But here black is just lost because white gained back the sacrificed piece. And well, we have a pawn up. Black's king is really weak. So the game did not continue for really long. Let's check it out until the end. Queen d7, rook c7, rook c8, queen g8 check, rook f8, bishop f7 now, king d8, rook d7, king d7, bishop e6, king c7, queen h7. Okay, and black resigns. So after this game, I think we can call Michna Kostaki the hero of the day, bringing a really nice and important win in our important match against Slovakia. So by this point, it was already 3-2. Same like me, I got 2 out of 3, but I also felt I could do better. I see, Diana. Well, it's like I was saying, it's good to have some place for improvement. Just not to feel too comfortable where you are, so that you find motivation to work. At least that's my philosophy. But Ireland are not as strong as Romania. We got 1.5 out of 3 through. So we did well today. Okay, so congrats to Team Ireland. And I hope you will continue doing well tomorrow, as I hope Romania will do as well. All right, let's move on to the next game. In the match of the junior girls, the young Miruna Lehach from our team had quite a smooth victory with the black pieces. So the final score in the match of Romania versus Slovakia was 4-2. So my unfortunate loss did not make such a big difference, luckily. Thank you, Diana. Best luck to both of us, I think, yeah. All right. So in the last match of the day, the penultimate one, we played against Thailand, and we had a really smooth victory there, winning 6-0. So I will move on to the last match of the day, the one we played against Austria. There on the first board was Mircea Perligras, Grandmaster from Romania, the third ranked, I think. So he played d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4, the Ragozin, c takes, e takes, bishop g5, knight d7, knight d2. To be honest, I'm not really familiar with this opening, but I think Mircea taught us something with his game, so let's watch it. Bishop e7, e3, short castle, bishop d3. c6, short castle. Well, the structure, the pawn structure is a very well known one, the Carlsbad, where white has a pawn minority on the queen side and is supposed to attack black's nice pawn chain here. This is one plan, and the other plan is to play f3 and d4. At least these are the usual plans in the position. In the same time, black usually goes for some piece exchanges, trying to do something like rook e8, knight f8, knight e6, maybe then knight e4 at some point if it's possible. Well, quite a complicated position actually. Here rook e8 followed, queen c2, knight f8. Oh wow, all the moves which I predicted. Rook a to e1, knight g6. So Mircea decided not to go for the pawn minority attack, and instead he played h3 here, b6. And here was a move which really surprised me, because I would expect some f3 and e4 ideas, but maybe by playing rook a to e1 instead of rook f to e1 and then rook a to d1, Mircea already showed that he had something different in mind. And he played f4. Well, this is not a usual move, as I was saying, and there are a lot of strategical risks here. Basically, White's saying that, of course, he wants to attack on the king side, but in the same time, he's conceding a lot of light squares. So, if Black manages to defend well, then White might get into some strategical trouble. In the game, Black played c5, knight f3 followed, a6, and knight e5. Now I start to like White's position more and more. The problem is that usually in these positions, Black's knight stays much better on c6 because it puts some pressure on the d4 pawn. But now with it on g6, I'm not even sure what to recommend for Black to play. Perhaps c4 would have been an idea. Closing up the center and then trying to create some counterplay on the queen side. Now after c4, I don't know, probably White would have played something like bishop f5. And then b5, is it possible? Ah, alright. So the problem is that b5 runs into knight c6, when after queen c7, knight e7, there are no good captures for Black, because rook e7 or knight e7, then bishop takes f6, and queen e7 is not good because of knight takes d5, and Black is losing a pawn here. Alright, so it means that b5 wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, then it's difficult. Maybe bishop b7 is forced then. Probably that's what should have been played anyways. Why Black did not play h6 instead of c5? Let me check. h6. Well, h6 is not working because of bishop f6, and taking on g6. So, unfortunately, h6 wasn't possible. Alright, let's get back to the game. After knight e5, Black played bishop b7, bishop f5, knight f8. Yeah, now there were some other issues. Now bishop f6, and then knight d7 in some variations may appear. So that's why he probably did go for knight f8. Rook d1 now. White is ready to take on c5 at some point, maybe not immediately, and then e4. Black played c4 himself, probably going for that plan which I mentioned before with b5. Well, that sounded funny. Alright, so a4 preventing b5, rook b8, and b3 now. And unfortunately for Black, he was not in time to play b5 and support his pawn chain. So now he is in real trouble. Hello, Vorgod Barde. Yeah, you're sorry for Barcelona. I think everyone felt really sorry for Barcelona yesterday, even though Bayern Munich played much better. What can one say? All right, b5 now. A takes, b takes c4, d takes c4, and knight takes b5. Here Black felt fine with his position, probably because he took on g2, queen g2, rook b5. But the problem is that the c4 pawn is still really weak, and black's king is not feeling happy at all. Queen c6, rook b4, and d5. Now d6 is a huge threat. The bishop on e7 is somewhat stranded, and black is in real trouble. h6 followed, bishop h4, knight h5, bishop e7, rook e7, and d6. Now there are a lot of problems in the position. One of them is that after rook e8, d7, rook e7, queen c8, knight c6 is coming, and the pawn will eventually promote. So black found nothing better to do than to sacrifice an exchange here. Queen g5, queen g2, knight g3, rook f3, rook b2, queen takes g3, and it was game over. So 1-0 from Romania in the match against Austria. Let's move on to the next game. It was between international master Kilgus Georg with the white pieces, and with the black pieces it was Romanian champion Miron Lucian Costin. It was a Sicilian. Bishop b5 check, bishop d7, bishop d7, knight d7, a Moscow variation. Knight d7 is not the most usual capture here. I think more often is being played queen takes d7, but it became quite fashionable later. Lately, not later. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired, guys. I played like all the 3 games today, and I also had a lesson, so my brain is not working very smoothly. Hello, Andre. How are you doing? Well, we are doing fine so far. By the way, Andre is one of the players from the Moldavian team who is playing in the same group of the second division in which Romania does. So how did today go for Moldova and for you particularly? Alright, so here white played c4, which is a really unusual move. I think the main theory goes differently. I think short castle is the main move, and then after knight f6, let's say queen e2. White's idea is to either go for c3 and d4, or to slowly prepare it, or to go d3, knight c3, and then launch an attack over black's king side by playing something like knight h4, f4, or knight e1, f4, and so on. Instead, the Austrian player did play c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, short castle, bishop e7, d3, castle, king h1. Well, actually, I see now that white is preparing the same attack which I was mentioning before, only that I'm not sure that this pawn on c4 is better placed than it would be on c2. So the enemy comes into the stream. Hello, Sperry. Not an enemy, just a spy. Yeah, probably. Andrei didn't play today. Oh, you lost to Greece and Israel. Those were important matches, so I'm sorry to hear that. Alright, let's move on. a6 followed, knight g1, d5. It feels like it was a really good choice by white, and here it probably highlights why I think that the pawn was better placed on c2 rather than on c4. You know, like there is this saying that when your opponent attacks on one of the flanks, you should answer with a blow in the center. So that's exactly what Lucian was doing. f4, and here d4 followed, which is a bit of an unnatural move to me. I would prefer taking on c4 and then maybe playing something like knight b8. The endgame is convenient for black because white has this really weak square on d4, and in the same time, if white does not go for the endgame, we have this juicy square anyway. So yeah, I think d takes c4 would have been better. Instead, he chose to play d4, which is a completely viable move as well. So nothing wrong about it, just that I would prefer the other one. Quite tough online, and on 6 boards and +3 girls. Well, yeah, not easy. I have to admit, not easy. Greece really crushed Moldova today. Well, unfortunately, I did not have time to check the games, but maybe I will do so after tomorrow. With the 4 people match format, we would have some chances. Well, I think there are chances every time, even though Greece really has a very strong team composition on the women's boards, with the ex-world junior champions on 2 of them, Stavrula Tsolakidou, who's rated over 2400, and Anastasia Avramidou, who's also an ex-junior world champion. So yeah, playing against Greece is always tough. I know that as our team also gets paired against Greece almost in every Olympiad. Alright, here after d4, 92 followed, b5, b3, all natural. Here again, I did not like Lucian's rook b8. I think again it was better to try rerouting this knight by knight b8 than knight c6. Instead he played rook b8, and here after e5, knight e8, knight g3. Now white's attack becomes more palpable. B takes c4, b takes c4, and it's not so clear where should black have his counterplay. Queen a5 followed, knight e4, f5. Well, what to do? Black should do something, otherwise the attack will just kill him slowly. He takes f6, knight f6, bishop d2, queen c7, knight g5. But now the pawn on e6 is really weak, and altogether black's position starts looking worse and worse. And actually the game was somehow in that manner. It continued and up to some point. White won this weak pawn on e6, and then white's position was of course much better with that pawn advantage, but still black had some chances, and I really wanted to highlight them. Here after knight d2, king f7, for some reason white decided to exchange queens. Well, it is actually recommended when you are material up, but actually here it wasn't a good idea. He should have kept the queens on, as black's king is still quite weak, and play something like bishop h4. Instead he went for queen e4, and after the exchange he failed to notice that the king comes really quickly. So king e6, the threat is king f5, and the problem is that g4 is not possible because of g5. So here he played g3, king f5, knight f2. And unfortunately for Lucian, he failed to find g5 in this position, which actually holds the position for black. I'm not even sure that black is worse here. I think that okay, because of that bad king on h1 and this super active black's king on f5, black has no problems at all. Maybe we can he can even play for a win here. Why do we so often overestimate our chances after queen exchange? Well, that's a good question, Sparry. Maybe that's because in endgames, the better players become even more dangerous. So at least that's what I feel. So for example, when I'm playing youngsters, I feel really happy by going into some endgame, because I know that that's the last thing they study. So maybe that has something to do with it, or who knows. Alright, so instead he played knight d7, and then white had just enough time to convert his advantage. Alright, whew. So let's move on to the next game. The next game was mine. Alright, so now it will become more fun. Sperry likes his chances against youngsters. Yes, if you survive their opening preparation, then all is fine. Thank you for the follows, guys. Nice to see new faces here in the chat. Alright, so in this game I played against Elizabeth Hapala. I think her title is Women International Master, though she's rated somewhere around 2300. So it was a Sicilian. I had white pieces, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes, knight takes, a6, the Paulsen. Here I tried a lot of systems over the last few years. I played the most principal knight c3. I also tried c4, but today I felt like playing something new, so I played bishop d3. She chose bishop c5, which is the main line, knight b3. Well, here black has a choice to either go for bishop a7 or for bishop e7. My feel is that all these positions are slightly better for white, though I might be wrong. If that would be Ilyas Mirin, a grandmaster from Israel here, maybe he would say that he feels very well with the black pieces in these setups. He's a well-known expert of all these Paulsens. So, yeah. No, Sperry, I don't think bishop d3 is actually the most popular move. I think it's knight c3. Hello, Strzelek. Nice to see you in the chat again. Nice to see you on the stream, of course. Alright, so here bishop a7 followed. But why I like this variation is because white has a really, really simple plan. And the advantage is not big, but it's one which will last for a long time. So it's quality, not quantity here. Queen e2, knight c6. Well, white's idea is to play bishop e3, exchange this bishop, then play c4, knight c3, play rook e1, rook d1, or rook d1, rook c1. I mean, just bring the rooks towards the central files, and then slowly squeeze black as he has less space. She played d6, short castle, knight f6. Here I decided to take on a7, rook takes a7, and c4. Well, that rook on a7 might be looking awkward, but there is some idea behind this move. Black wants to play probably something like b6, and then maybe rook d7, bishop b7, try to bring the pieces like this. And then, of course, black's idea and dream would be to play d5. And from this we can understand that white's plan should be to prevent that from happening. Short castle followed, and here I'm not sure that I played the best move. This knight c3 was a very natural one to play, but then I'm not sure it was the best square for the knight. Maybe knight d2 was better. Because d5 is still not a threat, white can take and play e5, and then black will have this weak pawn on d5. Here after knight c3, what I disliked was the possibility of black playing a5, and even though he's giving up this square on b5, then he has some play with a4, e5, knight d4. I don't know, maybe he's not in time with this. Let me check. Rook d1, a4, let's say knight c1. Well, there are some troubles with c5, knight d6. The pawn on d6 is really weak. But In the same... e5 is already a bad move because after bishop b1, pawn on d6 is hanging and then c5 is coming. Okay, then maybe my knight c3 wasn't such a bad move. Maybe it was fine. Here she played e5, rook f to d1. As I said, white's plan is really simple. Bishop e6, rook c1. Now also because of this pin, some ideas with c5 might be possible. Rook a8, knight d5. Well, this move has a very concrete approach. The idea is that after bishop d5, which actually followed in the game, e takes d5, knight e7, white can play the typical c5 move. A really nice breakthrough, which I was quite happy to make on the board. The idea behind the move is that d takes c5 is not possible, as I can play d6, and after queen d6 there is bishop h7 check, winning a queen, and if black goes away with the knight, then I can just take on c5, and my position looks fantastic. But what is happening if black takes on d5? Okay, let's check it out. In the beginning I thought that maybe I can play just bishop c4, but then I did not like knight f4, and after queen f3 d5, I was not sure that this is so great for me. So after knight d5 I found this slow move, queen f3. The idea is just to go away from that knight f4 so that it doesn't come with such a big threat. And in the same time we still want to play bishop c4 and then take on d6. That's why black has to do something with the knight from d5. Knight f4 was pretty logical. C takes d6. Again, capturing with the queen is not possible because of bishop h7, so knight d3, queen d3, and queen b6. Well, here I was really happy about the outcome of all this forced line, because, well, now I have the strong pawn on d6, and in the same time I have control over the c file. My knight is better than the knight on f6 because it can jump to c5. But somehow, again, I failed to evaluate what is happening after the queen's exchange. So, well, actually, it's probably I'm being too hard on myself saying that, because the queen exchange is not bad. I mean, white still has a huge advantage here after it, but there was just a better way for white to continue. One way was to play rook c7, another way was to play knight c5, and the problem is that after rook c8, let's say d7 is possible, and after rook c5, rook takes, queen takes, d8, queen, white is winning. So probably knight c5 would have been better. But well, queen e3 looks quite natural. Let's see how the game developed. Queen takes e3, f takes, rook f to d8. Actually, it was only now when I made a serious mistake by not finding knight a5. Knight a5, somehow it fell out of my sight. I don't know, I was always looking only for knight c5 ideas, and I completely forgot about this possibility of placing it on another square. Why it was so good? Because, well, the pawn is hanging, obviously, and when black tries to defend it, then after rook c7, knight e8, rook b7, rook takes b7 is forced, and after knight b7 we just get to this endgame with an extra pawn. And actually it's not only a pawn we're winning, but it's the game, because after, let's say, rook d7 we have knight c5, and black is forced to take on d6 and go to this very sad knight endgame. Yeah, of course I don't have to move the knight after rook d7, but why not to win another pawn? Instead, I played rook c7 immediately. I thought that here knight e8 wouldn't be so good. Why? Let me try to remember. I think because of rook takes b7. And then still the endgame is better for white here. She played correctly, I think, b6. Now the knight can no longer jump to neither c5 nor a5. Rook b7 followed, rook b8, rook b8, rook b8, and rook c1 now. The question is in this position if I have enough resources to hold on to this pawn on the d file, because if black manages to bring his, her king towards it, then it might be white who will be in trouble. So king f8, knight d2. The knight is useless on b3 now, so I try to bring it on a better square. King e8, rook c7. It was not a blunder, don't worry. I saw knight d5 coming, and I prepared here rook a7, with the point being that after knight e3, rook e7 check, king f8, I can take on e5. Knight g4 is forced, rook e4, knight f6, rook c4. I'm getting dizzy from all these rook moves, but what to do? King e8, rook c7. Whew. Now here I think it was the moment when black went wrong by not finding knight e5. This was a vital move, because, well, if I'm going to a7, then rook c... rook c8 is not possible because of d7. Okay, then probably black would still have to play a5. But the knight on d5 is doing a very nice job defending the e7 square, the pawn on b6. Maybe black can still hope for something here, even though, of course, white is better. Let's take a look on the chat. There is just win. Yeah, indeed, Sperry. There was a win, a straight win. All right. Rook d8 followed. But here after rook c6, knight d7, and knight c4, it is already quite difficult for black to hold the position. Rook b8, knight e3. So I outmaneuvered my opponent here. Maybe she got dizzy from all my knight and rook maneuvers here. I'm not sure. Well, this game should have ended much before if I would have found that knight a5 move, which I unfortunately did, but well, all is good enough which ends well. Here f6 followed, rook c7, knight c5. Okay, this is already desperation. Well, here there are already various threats, knight f5, knight d5, then I can just bring the king. Basically, black is stuck there in a Zugzwang because the knight doesn't move. As the pawns on the 7th rank are weak, the king also cannot come because the knight is weak. Then all these pawns are also weak, so nothing good in black's position. That's why she played knight c5, but then, well, after rook g7, rook d8, knight f5, knight e4, rook e7, she also blundered the knight. And it was over. So that was the last game which I played today, and that was another victory, luckily. So I made 2 out of 3 today, losing one unfortunate game in which I didn't really play well, but even though I did play quite badly in that game, I still could have made a draw if I wouldn't have panicked with my clock ticking down. Alright, I think guys, that will be it for today. In the end, Romania won against Austria with the score of 4-2, I think. So finally we are leading in our B group. Sorry for some technical issues. All is fine. I'm back now. And tomorrow there will be the last 3 matches, and then if we keep up the good work, then it shouldn't be a problem for us to qualify for the first division. Whew, I spoke so much today, guys. Okay, being in time travel when playing online feels so much tougher than being in time travel over the board. Actually, that's how I feel as well, Sparry. Alright, so thank you everyone for being here tonight and showing your support to Romania's team. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's stream, and if you would like to make a donation, that would be highly appreciated. Anyway, tomorrow same time, same place at 8 p.m. Central European Time, I will be live again and telling you the results of the last day of the second division Olympiad, and will be sharing my final impressions. Alright, good night everyone.